Kael had been alone on Vathros 7 for 8 months, which meant he'd developed some questionable habits. Talking to his equipment mostly, sometimes arguing with it. The atmospheric analyzer had a particularly contentious personality, in his opinion, always beeping at the most inconvenient times like a needy pet. "Yes, I know the pressure's dropping," he muttered, pulling his thermal gloves tighter. "You've told me 6 times in the last hour. We get it. You're very observant." The analyzer beeped again, smug. Outside the habitat dome, Vathros 7 stretched in endless white, a frozen wasteland that made Antarctica look like a beach resort. The planet had exactly 2 settings, unbearably cold and apocalyptically cold. Today was trending toward the latter. Kael's heads-up display showed the white storm forming on the horizon, a wall of ice crystals and wind that could strip flesh from bone in under a minute. Beautiful and utterly terrifying, like most things in the universe worth paying attention to. He was doing his routine scanner sweep, mostly out of boredom, when the biosignatures appeared. Kael blinked, certain his display was malfunctioning. Nothing lived on Vathros 7 except extremophile bacteria and 1 very lonely human. He tapped the scanner, that universal fix-it technique that worked approximately never. The signatures remained, faint but definitely there, roughly 2 kilometers northeast. "You've got to be kidding me," he said to nobody. The habitat's AI didn't respond, which was probably wise. Kael had threatened to reprogram it at least 3 times this week. The smart move was to ignore it. Probably sensor ghosts, interference from the storm's electromagnetic field. The colony ship regulations were clear. No unauthorized excursions during white storm warnings. Violating protocol meant a formal reprimand, possible reassignment, definitely a stern talking to from command. Kael looked at the signatures again. 2 of them, stationary, growing weaker. "Damn it," he said, and started suiting up. The exosuit was humanity's answer to environments that actively wanted to murder you. A masterwork of thermal regulation, radiation shielding, and enough power cells to run a small city, all packed into something that made him look like a robot mated with a tank. Kael sealed the helmet and felt the suit's systems come online, his HUD flooding with data he mostly ignored out of habit. "Habitat, log this as a rescue operation," he said, his voice crackling through the comm system. "If I die out there, make sure my personnel file says something heroic. Died saving orphan space puppies has a nice ring to it." The AI finally spoke, its tone remarkably dry for something without actual emotions. "There are no space puppies on Vathros 7, Specialist Kael." "You don't know that for certain," Kael said, stepping into the airlock. "Universe is full of surprises." The outer door opened, and the cold hit him like a physical thing, even through the suit's insulation. Vathros 7 didn't mess around. The wind was already picking up, ice crystals beginning their horizontal dance across the landscape. The storm wall loomed larger now, maybe 40 minutes out. Tight but doable. Kael activated his emergency sled, a stripped-down hover platform meant for equipment transport, and headed northeast at the maximum safe speed, which on Vathros 7 meant the maximum speed that wouldn't turn him into a popsicle if the sled systems failed. The biosignatures grew stronger as he approached, his suit's sensors cutting through the increasing snow. Then he saw them, and his brain briefly short-circuited, trying to process what his eyes were reporting. 2 figures collapsed in the snow, wearing what looked like ceremonial robes instead of proper thermal gear. Humanoid, definitely, but the ears long, delicate, sweeping back from their heads like something from ancient myth. Their skin had a faint luminescence even through the ice forming on their exposed faces. "Okay," Kael said, his voice tight. "Not space puppies. This is significantly weirder." They were unconscious, their vital signs critically low according to his scanner. He didn't have time for careful protocol or first contact procedures. The storm was maybe 30 minutes out now, close enough that he could hear it, a sound like the planet itself screaming. Kael grabbed the first woman-girl. He had no idea how to judge age in an alien species, and hauled her onto the sled. She was lighter than he expected, her body temperature so low his suit registered her as barely alive. The second one was smaller, younger-looking, ice crystals forming elaborate patterns in her dark hair. Come on," he muttered, strapping them both down with the equipment restraints, probably violating about 15 different first contact protocols, but at least keeping them from sliding off during transport. If you die on me, I'm going to be so annoyed. The paperwork alone will be murder. The sled complained about the extra weight, but lifted smoothly. Kael turned back toward the habitat and opened the throttle as far as he dared. The storm was close enough now that visibility was dropping fast, the white wall consuming the horizon like a living thing with terrible intentions. His power cells were draining faster than optimal, the suit systems working overtime to keep him warm and the sled operational. The habitat dome appeared through the snow like a miracle, its lights cutting through the white. Kael didn't slow down until he was practically ramming the airlock, the sled's momentum carrying them into the safety zone as the storm's leading edge arrived with a roar that shook the dome's superstructure. He'd made it. They'd made it. Kael looked down at the two unconscious aliens on his sled and laughed, slightly hysterical, completely exhausted. "Welcome to Vathro 7, he said. "Sorry about the weather. It's always like this." Then he dragged them inside to figure out what the hell happened next. The medical bay wasn't designed for alien physiology, but Kael did his best. He positioned both women under the thermal lamps, their bodies slowly warming, from dangerous hypothermia to merely concerning hypothermia. The scanner kept throwing error messages about unknown biological markers, which was unhelpful, but at least meant it was trying. The older one woke first, 36 hours after he'd brought them in. Her eyes snapped open with startling alertness, silver blue and entirely focused on him. Kael, who'd been dozing in the observation chair with a cold cup of synthetic coffee, nearly fell over. "Hey, easy," he said, hands up in what he hoped was a universal gesture for, "Please don't panic." "You're safe." "Well, relatively. We're still on Vathro 7, which isn't anyone's idea of safe, but you're not freezing to death anymore, so that's progress." She said something in a language that sounded like music played backwards through water. Beautiful, completely incomprehensible. "Right, okay, language barrier," Kael muttered, reaching for his translator unit. "Let's see what we can do about that." He activated the matrix and let it start sampling her speech. The device was supposed to be cutting-edge xenolinguistics technology, though in Kael's experience, it mostly made things sound vaguely insulting in multiple languages simultaneously. The woman watched him with unnerving intensity, her long ears twitching slightly as she tracked his movements. She spoke again, slower this time, and the translator spat out fragments. "Gratitude, death saved." "I'm Kael," he said, pointing to himself. "Human. Planetary scout. I found you in the snow during the storm. You and—" He gestured to the other woman, still unconscious, but breathing steadily. Recognition flashed across her face. She sat up too quickly, swaying, and said something urgent. The translator caught. "Sister, Elith is she?" "She's alive," Kael assured her. "Stable. She'll wake up soon, I think. Your biology is close enough to human that the warming protocols seem to be working." The woman visibly relaxed, then placed one hand over her heart in what looked like a formal gesture. "Nyra," she said clearly. "I am. Nyra. Nice to meet you, Nyra. Under less frozen circumstances would have been better, but beggars and choosers and all that." The translator was learning fast now, building context from their exchange. Nyra's next words came through clear. "You risked the White Death for us." "Why?" Kael shrugged. "Seemed like the thing to do. Leaving people to freeze isn't really my style. Plus, the paperwork for ignore dying aliens would have been even worse than the paperwork for rescue dying aliens. So really I was being selfish." Nyra tilted her head, her ears shifting in a way that might have been confusion. "You joke about death. I joke about everything. It's a coping mechanism. You'll get used to it." A small sound from the other bed drew their attention. Elith was stirring, her eyes fluttering open. They were the same silver blue as her sisters, but wider, more vulnerable. When she saw Nyra, she gasped something that needed no translation, pure relief. The sisters spoke rapidly to each other, their hands clasping. Kael gave them space, checking the medical readouts and pretending not to notice the emotion in their voices. The translator was catching fragments. Thought we'd die the cold. He came. Human. Saved us both. Finally, Elith looked at him. She was younger than Nyra. He was certain now. Her features softer, less guarded. She said something the translator rendered as, "Thank you, stranger who walks in ice." "Just Kael is fine," he said. "And you're welcome. How are you feeling?" "Alive," Elith said simply and smiled. It transformed her entire face. Kael explained their situation as best he could. The storm trapping them for at least 2 weeks. His habitat's limited but adequate supplies. The fact that he was the only human for about 3,000 kilometers. Nyra listened with sharp attention, asking occasional questions. Elith seemed more interested in touching everything in the medical bay, her fingers trailing over equipment with obvious curiosity. "Where did you come from?" Kael asked. "There aren't supposed to be any settlements on Vathros 7. Nyra's expression darkened. "Our colony ship, it crashed 3 cycles ago, on the dark side. We are a Thyri. We searched for help. Heard rumors of a human outpost." "That'd be me," Kael said. "Sorry it's not more impressive. Usually it's just me and my argumentative equipment." "Your equipment argues?" Elith asked, her eyes lighting up. "The atmospheric analyzer has opinions," Kael said seriously. "Strong ones." Elith laughed, a sound like bells. Nyra was watching him again with that unreadable expression, and Kael felt something shift in the air, subtle but significant. He had no idea yet just how significant. Day 4 of cohabitation began like the others, Kael making synthetic coffee that tasted like regret, Nyra examining his star charts with scholarly intensity, Elith trying to convince the Habitat AI to play music from a database it didn't have. Then Nyra cleared her throat with ceremonial gravity, and Kael knew his peaceful morning was about to end. "Kael," she said, her long ears perfectly upright in what he'd learned meant seriousness. "We must speak of the Keth era." "The what now?" Kael said, pausing mid-sip. "The vow of ice and breath," Nyra continued. Elith moved to stand beside her sister, equally solemn. "Among our people, when one saves a life from the killing cold, a sacred bond is formed. The debt cannot be repaid with simple gratitude." Kael set his coffee down carefully. "Okay, I'm listening. What kind of debt are we talking about? Because if it's credits, I should warn you. Scout pay is terrible." Nyra's ears twitched. "Not currency. The survivor becomes bound to their savior. Spirit to spirit, life to life. For as long as both shall live." "That's very poetic," Kael said slowly. "But I'm not sure I follow." Elith stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "In our culture, this bond often means marriage. A joining of fates." Kael laughed. He couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation, trapped in an ice habitat with 2 beautiful aliens, who were apparently proposing marriage because he'd pulled them out of a snowdrift, was too much. "That's good," he said, still chuckling. "You almost had me there." Neither sister laughed. The silence stretched. Kael looked from Nyra's serious expression to Elith's hopeful one, and felt his amusement drain away, like water, through a cracked hull. "Oh," he said, "you're not joking." "We do not joke about the Keth era," Nyra said firmly. "You saved us both from the White Death. By the laws of our people, we are both bound to you. We both wish to honor this bond." "Both," Kael repeated faintly. "As in, both of you want to marry me?" "Yes," Elith said simply, as if this was the most natural thing in the universe. Kael stood up, ran his hands through his hair, sat back down. "Okay, I need to process this. You're telling me that because I did the decent thing and didn't let you freeze, now you both think we should get married? That's the custom." "It is more than custom," Nyra said. "It is sacred law. The ice does not lie. When death is turned away in the white cold, the spirits recognize a connection that transcends chance." "My people have a saying," Kael said desperately. "Good deed, no reward," meaning you do the right thing because it's right, not because you expect something back. "We offer this not as payment," Nyra said, her voice gentle now, "but as truth. The Keth era reveals what was meant to be." Kael stood again, pacing, Look, I appreciate the sentiment really, but humans don't work like this. We have dating, awkward dinner conversations, arguing about whose turn it is to do dishes. There's a whole process. We can learn your dishes, Elith offered helpfully. That's not. Kael stopped, took a breath. What I mean is, marriage is supposed to come after you know someone. After time. After. I don't know, at least establishing if you even like the same music. I like all music, Elith said brightly. Problem solved. Nyra was watching him with those silver blue eyes, and Kael felt pinned. Does your culture have a law against honoring a vow that binds two peoples together? Against accepting a gift freely given? It's not about laws, Kael said, though he was less certain now. It's about this is crazy. You don't even know me. We know you walked into the White Death for strangers, Nyra said quietly. We know you speak gently even when confused. We know you joke to ease tension, that you are kind to your sister when she touches your things, that you have been alone here for many cycles. 8 months, Kael corrected automatically, then realized he'd just confirmed her point. Elith moved closer, her expression earnest. We do not demand anything, Kael. We only ask that you consider what the ice has shown us, that perhaps 3 souls found each other in the cold for a reason. Kael looked at them both, Nyra's quiet strength, Elith's open hope, and felt the ground shifting beneath his feet in ways that had nothing to do with Vathros 7's tectonic instability. I need time, he said finally, to think. This is a lot. The storm will not clear for many days, Nyra said. We have time. Right, Kael said weakly. Time. Great. Love time. He retreated to the observation deck, leaving the sisters whispering to each other in their musical language, and stared out at the frozen wasteland that suddenly seemed less intimidating than the situation inside. The habitat wasn't built for 3 people, which meant personal space became a theoretical concept rather than a practical reality. Kael tried to maintain his routines, logging atmospheric data and monitoring the storm's progress, but it was hard to focus on barometric pressure when Nyra kept reorganizing his supply storage with terrifying efficiency. You had nutrition blocks sorted by acquisition date, she said on day 7, holding up a ration pack like evidence in a trial. Not by nutritional content or caloric value. This is chaos masquerading as order. It's my chaos, Kael protested. I knew where everything was. You knew where everything was badly, Nyra countered, and continued her systematic destruction of his organizational system. Elith, meanwhile, had discovered his collection of old Earth music and appointed herself the habitat's unofficial DJ. Currently, she was playing something that might have been jazz, might have been experimental noise. Kael had downloaded his entire library during a moment of optimistic bandwidth and now couldn't remember half of what he owned. This is beautiful, Elith sighed, swaying to rhythms Kael couldn't quite identify. The human heart sounds like this, all these complicated emotions and sound. That or someone dropped their instruments and recorded it, Kael said. I honestly can't tell anymore. She laughed, unbothered, and continued dancing. Her long ears moved with the music, and Kael found himself smiling despite everything. The strange domesticity accumulated in small moments. Nyra discovered that she could make the nutrition blocks almost palatable by mixing them with the protein supplements and heating them at precise temperatures. The resulting meals wouldn't win culinary awards, but they tasted like actual food instead of textured regret. How did you learn to do this? Kael asked, watching her work with the limited galley equipment. Necessity, Nyra said. After the crash, we had very little. I learned to make that little into something worth surviving for. There was weight in those words. History Kael didn't know how to ask about. Instead, he set the table, a fold-out surface that barely qualified as furniture, and pretended this was normal. Eating dinner with 2 alien women who thought they were supposed to marry him. Elith asked about Earth during the meal, her questions rapid-fire and enthusiastic. What did the oceans look like? Were there really birds that could fly for years without landing? Did humans actually keep smaller animals in their homes on purpose? Pets, Kael confirmed. Cats, dogs, sometimes fish. My sister had a cat that hated everyone except her. Mean little thing, but she loved it. You have a sister? Nyra asked, her attention sharpening. Pets, Kael confirmed. Cats, dogs, sometimes fish. My sister had a cat that hated everyone except her. Mean little thing, but she loved it. You have a sister? Nyra asked, her attention sharpening. Had, Kael corrected quietly. Past tense. She died 6 years ago. Medical transport accident in the outer colonies. The sisters exchanged glances, and Elith reached across the table to touch his hand briefly. The ice nose loss, she said softly. Kael cleared his throat. Yeah, well, it's why I'm here, I guess. Took the most isolated posting I could find. Seemed easier than being around people who knew her, who'd give me those sympathetic looks. And now you are trapped with us, Nyra said, something like understanding in her voice. 2 more people who will not let you hide in your routines. Story of my life, Kael muttered, but he didn't pull his hand away from Elith's. Later, during the habitat's dim cycle that passed for night, they gathered in the common area. The storm raged outside, visible through the reinforced dome, ice crystals creating patterns like abstract art against the force field that kept the worst of the weather at bay. Tell us about your family, Nyra said. She'd claimed a corner of the seating area, her posture relaxed but attentive. The ones who call you home. There isn't anyone, Kael admitted. Parents died when I was young, raised by my aunt until I was old enough for the academy. Sister's gone. No partner, no kids. Just me and whatever posting needs filling. That is why you came here, Nyra said. It wasn't a question. Seemed logical. No one to miss me, no one I'd miss. Just work and solitude and the occasional argument with malfunctioning equipment. He glanced at Elith, who was watching him with those enormous eyes. What about you two? Besides the crash, I mean. What's your story? The sisters shared a look, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, Nyra spoke. Our parents sent us on the colony ship to escape war. Our world, it tears itself apart over old grievances, ancient hatreds. They hoped we would find peace in the stars. Instead, you found Vathros 7, Kael said. Not exactly peaceful. We found you, Elith said simply. Maybe that is the same thing. Before Kael could figure out how to respond to that, she shifted closer on the seating area, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her. May I ask something personal? You want to marry me, Kael said. I think we're past worrying about personal. She smiled. Do you think we are strange? Our customs, our belief in the Kethera? Kael considered this. Strange isn't the right word. Different, maybe. But humans have weird customs, too. We throw rice at weddings, wear uncomfortable clothes to funerals, and we think it's good luck if a cat crosses our path. But only if it's black and only on Tuesdays. Or maybe it's bad luck. Honestly, we can't keep it straight ourselves. Elith laughed, delighted. You are making some of that up. Maybe, Kael admitted. But the point stands. Every culture has things that seem bizarre to outsiders. At least your tradition comes from a place of gratitude and connection. That's better than a lot of human customs I could name. Nyra had moved closer too. He realized. Both sisters were near him now, their presence warm in the habitat's recycled air. The storm howled outside, but inside felt strangely peaceful. I think, Nyra said carefully, that perhaps you have been alone too long, that you have forgotten what it means to be part of something larger than yourself. Maybe, Kael said, or maybe I never knew in the first place. Then we will teach you, Elith said, her hand finding his again. If you let us. Kael looked at them both, Nyra's quiet determination, Elith's open affection, and felt something in his chest that had been frozen for longer than his 8 months on Vathros. 7 began to thaw. The storm's not going to clear for at least another week, he said instead of all the things he was thinking. We know, Nyra said. We are patient. And hopeful, Elith added, squeezing his hand. Outside Vathros, 7 continued its eternal winter. Inside, something new was beginning to grow, fragile as the first shoots of spring in impossible ground. Kael didn't have answers yet, but for the first time in years, he was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, he wanted to find them. The white storm broke on the 19th day, and Kael watched it happen from the observation dome with something close to dread. The wall of ice and wind that had sealed them together for nearly 3 weeks retreated like a curtain being pulled back, revealing Vathros 7's pale sun struggling through the atmosphere. The planet looked almost serene in the aftermath, which Kael knew from experience meant it was planning something worse for next time. Behind him, he could hear Nyra and Elith moving through the habitat, their presence as familiar now as his own heartbeat. 19 days of close quarters had created rhythms and patterns. Nyra's methodical morning routine, Elith's tendency to hum while organizing data files, the way they both fell silent when he was concentrating on repairs. The communications array was functional again. He could contact the regional station within the hour, file his report, arrange transport for 2 refugee aliens to proper facilities where they could be processed, documented, assigned to a colony that actually had infrastructure and support systems. It was the logical thing to do. The protocol-following thing. The thing that wouldn't result in a dozen different regulatory agencies asking very pointed questions about why a planetary scout had kept 2 aliens in his habitat for 3 weeks without reporting them. "You are thinking very loudly," Nyra said from the doorway. Kael turned. Both sisters stood there, and he realized with a start that he could read their expressions now. The slight tilt of their ears, the way their eyes caught the light, the subtle shifts in posture that meant curiosity or amusement or concern. "Storm's over," he said unnecessarily. "Communications are back online." "Yes," Nyra said. "We know. I should contact the station, report the situation, get you both to somewhere with actual resources, other Athiri refugees, people who can help you properly." "You have helped us," Elith said softly. "More than properly. You have given us life, shelter, laughter. You have made us feel less alone in a universe that took everything from us." "I gave you nutrition blocks and argued with you about music," Kael said, but his voice came out rougher than intended. "You gave us hope," Nyra said simply. "The question is, Kael, what will you give yourself?" He looked at them both, these 2 impossible women who'd crashed into his isolated existence and turned everything sideways. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do," Nyra said, moving closer. "You have a choice to make. Follow your protocols and send us away to be someone else's responsibility. Return to your solitude, your arguments with equipment, your careful isolation from anything that might make you feel. Or," Elith added, joining her sister, "you could choose something different, something that terrifies you because it matters." Kael's throat felt tight. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple," Nyra said. "Not easy, but simple. Do you want us to leave?" The answer came faster than thought. "No." "Do you believe the Kethera is real?" Elith asked. "That the ice showed us truth when it brought us together?" Kael thought about the past 19 days. Nyra teaching him words in her language, while he taught her how to coax the temperamental water recycler into cooperation. Elith falling asleep during a documentary about Earth's oceans, her head on his shoulder, trusting him to keep watch. The 3 of them huddled together during a power fluctuation, telling stories in the dark until the generators reset. "I think," he said carefully, "that I came to Vathros 7 because I was tired of losing people, because being alone seemed safer than caring about someone and having them taken away. And I think that's a pretty cowardly way to live." "Not cowardly," Nyra said gently. "Human. Afraid of pain is not the same as being a coward." "But I also think," Kael continued, "that you can't hide from loss by hiding from life. My sister would have hated what I've become. She always said I was too serious, that I needed people even when I pretended I didn't." "She was wise," Elith said. "She was a pain in the ass," Kael said, smiling despite the tears he could feel building. "But yeah, she was right." He took a breath, let it out slowly. "I don't know how to do this. The Kethera marriage, any of it. I'm going to mess it up constantly. I'm going to say the wrong thing and forget important customs, and probably accidentally insult someone's ancestors." "We know," Nyra said, and her lips quirked. "We have experienced your sense of humor. We understand the risks." Hey, Kael protested weakly. Elith laughed, bright and free. We are not asking for perfection, Kael. We are asking for you. The stubborn human who argues with machines and makes terrible coffee and saved our lives without thinking twice. The coffee isn't that bad, Kael muttered. It is approximately that bad, Nyra said. But we will teach you better. Kael looked out at Vathros, 7 one more time. The endless ice. The isolation he'd chosen like armor against a universe that hurt. Then he looked back at Nyra and Elith, at the future they were offering with open hands and hopeful hearts. Okay, he said. Okay, teach me the words. For accepting the Kethera. In your language, the way it's supposed to be done. The joy that bloomed across both their faces made something in Kael's chest crack open. All the frozen parts of him suddenly flooded with warmth. Nyra spoke first, her voice formal and reverent. Keldar Nethys Vara, spirit acknowledges spirit. Kael repeated it carefully, his pronunciation probably terrible, but his intention clear. Elith continued, Eshtar Kina Valmari, life binds to life. He said it back, watching her eyes shine. Together, they finished. Kethera Velnima, the ice has spoken truth. Kethera Velnima, Kael said, and meant it with everything he had. They moved together then, the three of them, arms around each other in the small habitat that suddenly felt exactly the right size. Outside Vathros, 7 glittered under alien starlight, indifferent to the small miracle occurring within its frozen grasp. Kael did eventually contact the regional station. He filed a report that was technically accurate if strategically incomplete. He requested supplies for 3 instead of 1, filed the appropriate paperwork for extended habitat occupancy, and when the station commander asked if he needed relief from his posting, Kael surprised himself by laughing. No, sir, he said. I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Later, much later, when the sisters were asleep in the quarters they'd all agreed to share, Kael stood at the observation port and looked at the stars. He thought about his sister, about loss and loneliness, and the fear that had driven him to the edge of known space. I think you'd like them, he said quietly to the memory. They're kind of crazy, but in a good way. The kind that makes you remember why living matters. The stars offered no answer, but Kael didn't need one. He had everything he needed right here. 2 impossible women who'd walked out of a storm and into his life, who'd looked at his frozen heart and decided it was worth melting. He went to join them, leaving the observation port dark, the ice outside keeping its eternal watch. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, teaching Nyra and Elith more about human culture, learning the depths of Ethiri customs, figuring out how to build a life together on a planet that actively hated biological existence. But tonight, Kael fell asleep between his wives, their breathing synchronized like music, their warmth more than enough to hold back the cold. For the first time in 6 years, he dreamed of spring instead of winter, of growth instead of loss. And outside Vathros, 7 turned slowly through the void, carrying within its frozen heart a small bubble of warmth and laughter and love that would outlast any storm.